y'all? Welcome to another episode of Soccer for Us. I am Bart, and on this episode, we are closing the book on the 2026 World Cup cycle for the USMNT. We're going to look back at basically every milestone throughout the 2023 to 2026 years, looking at matches that may have turned the tide for the team, some very important coaching decisions, and some other things that happened along the way. To talk about that with me tonight is the greatest historian on U.S. soccer Twitter. It is Thomas, a.k.a. U.S. Keeper. Thomas, how is soccer going for you this summer?
Oh, it's been a busy summer. I've been happy to just run some clinics with some of the girls in our area to kind of pick up the soccer culture. Doing goalie training as well with some of the goalies in the youth league, so I'm happy to do that. All for free. So anyone listening in Maine, just to know, like this stuff can be done for free. We're trying to build that in the area, so it's a little bit of a lull for a couple weeks, and then the fall season will start here quite shortly for my daughter. So I will be coaching with her this year. So I was asked to coach, so I'll be doing that for probably the last time, I'm guessing, but you never know. I always keep my certifications up to date and everything in line. So if I'm needed, I'm able to help out.
Soccer does not stop. The World Cup may be over, but it certainly
does not stop. It is not definitely year-round.
Well, and that is even true for U.S. soccer teams. We watched, unfortunately, somewhat sad end, but the U.S. U20 men's national team played in the CONCACAF U20 championship, losing to Mexico 2-0 in the final. However, the U.S. does qualify for the 2027 U20 World Cup and the 2027 Pan American Games. Both of those are youth tournaments, which I think is a good thing. We talked about a little bit last time, emphasizing the U23 group and the 2028 Olympics. I do want to just say, like, it sucks losing to Mexico in the final. I'm tired of doing that. Like, I would like for us to beat Mexico in a final in one of these dadgum tournaments.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough right now. I mean, I think we're in a bit of a lull, I think, with some of that rivalry, but I think it's a good rivalry, obviously. For us to continue having that marker to go by, but we have to see progression. I mean, obviously they have to be playing in the finals of these matches and tournaments, and you assume Mexico is going to be there as well in there. And so I think it's a good test. But if we're going to really take U.S. soccer to that next level, consistently being on top, consistently winning, and then consistently doing well in these tournaments that they're qualifying for is huge, because it can't just be, hey, we got to the quarterfinals again, right, of a U20 World Cup. It's got to be, we made it to the semifinals or we made it to the finals, right? And to take it to that next step of it.
It is fair to say two things. One, this was not the most elite U20 grouping. It was technically a U19 grouping because, the way ages work, the 19-year-olds will be 20 next year, obviously. But even then, I don't know if he necessarily is ready for that, but there's no Kevin Sullivan, no Matthews Alford, none of the big names in MLS. Even a lot of these guys are MLS Next Pro players. There are a couple of MLS starters and players on the group. So I think it's fair to say it's not our best possible team for the age group. But to your point, making the final is the bare minimum, I think, for any U.S. men's team, whatever age in CONCACAF. However, the team did play pretty well throughout the tournament. They struggled to score goals in open play. I mean, I think our first two matches, we had 4 total penalty kicks. But they looked good playing. And I think that was kind of the positive I saw. And yeah, you fell when you played the best team out there, but you beat 4 other, decent teams. You just unfortunately couldn't beat Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, right. And I know that at least one of the key players left camp early to go back. With his club. So I do need to articulate that. I mean, obviously the priority, I think, to win this tournament wasn't fully in, because obviously if you're sending players home, then they accomplished what they needed to get to the U20 World Cup and to qualify for the Pan American Games, and assuming that they had to have qualified for the Olympics, they would have done whatever they needed to do that. So I again, that's that priority. I struggle as a youth fan because we don't always get the players that we want. The clubs don't always release them, so there is that challenge. I wish there'd be a little bit more, I don't know, willingness to do that, especially when we talk about these youth World Cups and even the Olympics, right? And I think that's where I don't know if we can develop collaboration or FIFA has to step in or whatever it is, because again, Olympics is not a sanctioned FIFA tournament. The World Cup is. I don't know what the rules are on the youth World Cups, if they're required to release players or not. I don't know, but yeah, it's not. It'd be nice to get these players and get the best out there, because it is important to develop and grow that and have that continuity, with the groups. And that's part of the reason for the age groups, right? You're building that continuity at each age level, right? And then you've got the U17 and U20 World Cups to kind of bring it all together with those groups.
Got to be said, the red card on in the first half on Applegate was Applewhite, excuse me, was fishy at best.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. I don't know. I watched it a couple.
I don't
times.
know.
I didn't see anything like. And again, if you have VAR and you're reviewing it, which I believe they did, and you're still giving a red card on that, I just don't know what.
No contact.
Yeah,
he definitely wasn't the final. Like, it wasn't dog so because of the defenders back there. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I'm again, at the end of the day, the result didn't matter in terms of anything other than obviously playing for the championship, which I think is important, but it didn't prevent them from advancing into the tournament. So I think I'll leave it at that.
It was cool to be able to play in Estadio Azteca, I think, for the final. Good job for CONCACAF making that happen. I do think that is an actually cool thing to do for the U20s, and a really cool experience for our guys to get that feeling of playing against Mexico in Estadio Azteca. Speaking of Mexico USA games, we found out all 4 of the friendly matches, their opponents, and the schedules for the September-October window. It's the first window after the World Cup. It's the first time I think that I can ever remember that we've had like 4 matches in a window. So that in itself is cool. The matches are September 26th against Peru in Orlando, September 29 against Chile in St. Louis, October 3rd against Mexico in Glendale, Arizona, and closing out on October 6th against Canada in St. Paul, Minnesota. What do we make of the opponent selection?
I mean, 2 CONMEBOL teams we haven't seen in a while. I think it's great. Neither were in the World Cup, so I think I think they'll be teams that will match up well against, no matter as long as the roster is pretty balanced. I'm fine with Mexico, Canada. There are rivals in CONCACAF to our north and our south. I think it's those rivalries. I think they're important to have. I think the more we play them, when we have no other options, which in this case is probably a bad example, because I'm sure we could have scheduled a couple other friendlies ahead of this, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ideally, if we could have gotten 2 other opponents, I would have preferred that.
Yeah.
But maybe there was some motivation, finishing off the World Cup. I don't know. Are Mexico and Canada playing each other as well in this window? Do you know?
That is a great question. Let me look that up.
Yeah.
I mean, because
only
Mexico and Canada are both playing other opponents within this window. So I will say props to all 3 of those countries for kind of scheduling a round robin of sorts. Canada has just the matchup against Chile and Peru ahead of us. They're only playing 3 matches this window. Mexico is the one playing Colombia. So they're That's their extra game, but they're playing the others as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, I would have preferred to see another, 2 other teams.
Would have liked to have snagged Colombia instead of Canada.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when you can get those matches, you need to, because again, going forward, we start getting into Nations League, and that just becomes what it is at that point. So we'll see what that looks like in the November window.
We all know the struggles. We've talked about this with UEFA doing their Nations League, meaning and then Euro qualifying. It seems like they just exclusively play each other nowadays. AFCON qualification also starting for the African continent. I think Asia has qualifications for something as well. It is what it is. I wish we could have got slightly better than Chile and Peru, but
I'm fine with that. We haven't seen them in a little bit, and I mean they're decent opponents. I mean they both have had their peaks and their valleys within their confederation. So.
We're not going to get too much into roster speculation, but I got to ask, this has been the topic of discussion on Twitter. People are like, don't bring any of the guys who came to the World Cup. Only bring guys under the age of 22 or whatever. What do you expect or what do you want maybe to be that split of experience versus what's next?
I mean, I think you got a couple challenges in this window, right? Because it's a double window for matches, and there's not a lot of time between matches, right? So you've got players that are coming into club teams that haven't played all that much. US has traditionally been cooperative with clubs in terms of players' minutes more than I'd like them to be.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect we'll see that in this window for a number of reasons. So I don't know what the numbers of players are going to be. I think it might be a bigger roster, probably close to 27 or 28 players, I'm guessing.
I do agree I think I would want to push 30 players for a 4-match window. Just
because you'll release them early, for sure. Because probably what I would do is I would say, hey, after the 3rd match, you can go. For some of the European players. Sure. As far as bringing what you bring in, I think we have to be looking at the talent, if we're bringing in 30 players, let's say 7 of them, I think that may be a stretch, but 5 of them maybe being some of these younger players like Gozo, who we wanted to see in general within the roster. I am working on a piece right now as it relates to some of the younger players and what the expectation should be this cycle for that. And some of that could be premature too, right? I mean, to me, there are players that are older than the teenage group that could and maybe should, that are in their early 20s, maybe consider being given a look as well. And I think that's something that may be more beneficial earlier in the cycle, because these youth players have the U20 World Cup. They have a potential Olympics where they could be playing, right? And I've always said this, that the second half of the cycle, right? So after the Olympics, after Copa America, then you can start looking to bring in some of these players.
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly, but after the second year of the cycle, right?
Correct.
Bringing in some of those players, starting to integrate them into the program regularly, right? If you want to look at them now, fine, bring them in. I'm happy to do that, and I'm fine to do it with the fan. But I don't think you can say, hey, bring them all in, because they're not going to do that. They're trying to sell tickets too, right? So there's a little bit of a World Cup, tour, I guess you're going to put it. I mean, they're going all over the country. I mean, so they're going on a little bit of a victory tour, not victory, air quotes, but like after the World Cup. So they're going to want some of the bigger names there.
Yeah. I mean, these are healthy, big cities in theory. And while we will complain about this, I'm sure, in a later episode about actual stadium selection, but I mean, look, you got 65,000 seat stadium in Glendale, Arizona. You want some of that filled with U.S. fans.
Well, right. And I think what I do want to see too is I want to see how these fans come out for these matches. They came out for the World Cup, and that was impressive. And is U.S. Soccer going to try to bleed them dry, or are they going to try to find a way to get
Oh well.
more of these U.S. players into the stadium and find a way to maximize capacity and maximize revenue? Because I think you can do both, U.S. Soccer. If you're listening, you can do both, and allow that, because the players need that experience, that atmosphere
Mhm.
too. They deserve that, right? And U.S. Soccer has a little bit of control of how that works a little bit, and there's some math equations that they can figure out to find to maximize capacity and revenue, um, for their venue. So I'm hoping that there's a balance of talent that we see in there. Uh, get a few, get a few of these players some caps, get excited, find something to get excited over. Because that's the thing, like the start of a cycle is sluggish, right? It's like, all right, here we go. What do we have to look for? We don't have a tournament till the next summer. Oh yeah, Nations League again, right? Like let's find that, because Pochettino, he's gonna have to start evaluating a
Yeah.
new pool of players, and to me, there's a group of
Which
them
which
that
means
that
you're
didn't get looked at.
evaluating the last guys. Yeah. To me, that if you're saying, hey, we got to start making, if we're turning the page, if we're looking at the new crop, some of that means also looking at the guys that you had. That's because
Well, I
some
mean,
of them you may
right.
have already had made a decision about for sure.
I mean,
Like there are
yeah,
guys. I think we kind of have a list of guys that you think are going to be soon. I will say, um, I don't know this for sure, but you're playing in St. Louis. The captain of the team at the World Cup is from St. Louis. Wondering if Tim Ream is going to get a hey, thanks for playing. Okay, bye match, maybe.
yeah. I
But
mean, I think he's earned that, especially if it's there. And
yeah,
if you're gonna do it,
100%.
if you're gonna do it, now's the time to do it. Let's not wait any longer. Thank you, Tim Ream. You're gonna be 39. Like, it's done. Like,
Yeah,
in my opinion, after this window, there's no reason to bring Tim Ream back in.
no,
There's no reason,
yeah.
because he clearly showed he was declining.
He's
All these
not part
different.
of the next cycle. But if
He's
you want to
not.
give him a game, great, love that,
Yep.
fantastic.
I'm all
But
for that.
at the same time, this is a 3.5 week window or 3 week window of training. To me, that is big for Pochettino to bring in guys that the guys he feels like he can build with for the next cycle. A lot of those guys are still on the current squad. Like that's just what I think people. If you want Kevin Sullivan there, which I'm not saying he should or shouldn't be there, fine. But there aren't enough guys who are young guys who can put a competitive team against these four teams. Like that's just the problem. It's like you can't also then say like, well, just play the kids, and you have a bunch of 18-year-olds out there who are shell shocked by the fact that the international game is so drastically different. So you have to have some experience there. I would
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
see. I would like to lean on. Hopefully, Pochettino can lean on the European guys and say, "Hey, I do expect you to come to camp." I think that's been an issue, especially of the last cycle.
Yeah.
And we don't want to make the same mistakes from last cycle, this cycle, which is why in this episode, we're going to be looking back at that 2026 cycle to see what exactly we accomplished, how far we came, and look at mistakes and see how to avoid repeating them.
Yeah, and I do think when you look at, I know Pochettino wasn't big on it initially, but he's going to have to focus on dual national. I don't want to call it recruiting, but it is a recruitment of saying, hey, we're interested. Come to a camp. Play,
That's
don't
going to be
play,
big.
whatever it is, right? You have to.
Yep.
I think you have to offer that to these players at this point. Whoever you identify as these dual nationals that could potentially, obviously, help the team. And then again, if they want to be here, great. I want you here. If you don't, fine, don't be here. But you do have to consider that at this point. And I understand why he didn't want to go ahead and do that. But now that's part of the job. Something Greg
Yeah.
Berhalter did very well. Something that is part of, the foundation of U.S. soccer is, in my lifetime. I mean, there are dual nationals who help this team, get to the next level. And we had a bunch in this past World Cup, and we've had a bunch since, since 1990 World Cup, right? And so those are the things that we need to see a little bit more, or a lot more conversations with, for those players. I mean, because there are some ones that could definitely help this team out. And I would rather know earlier in the cycle than later in the
Mm-hmm.
cycle that they're going to be involved, right?
Yeah.
Because it just helps with the continuity and all this different, locker room, vibe in general that is part of this larger window, which I like because it's not 10 days. It's 3 weeks. You get plenty of time to bring everyone in and kind of just not all the rush of it. And I think it's a good opportunity to just bring that group together.
Well, we know the first 4 matches of the 2030 cycle. So now let's officially start looking back at this 2026 cycle. Was it good enough? Is the kind of the question we're asking here, because we always want to see US soccer progress. I think some cycles see more progression than others. This one's a little bit different. Obviously, hosting a World Cup, we knew that the goal for this entire cycle was perform well at the World Cup this past summer. But there's a lot of other things along the way that went well and didn't go well. And I think, if I'm being honest, the start of the cycle was probably what was, if I'm going to blame any problems or any lack of progress we had in the 2030 or 2026 cycle, I'm going to blame the start of the cycle. So the World Cup ended on December 11th on 2022, and ended December 3rd, 2022, and basically right after that we start with drama. And the Berhalter reign of drama was more than just a coach saying, or a player complaining about a coach not playing them and a coach explaining why he didn't get played. It brought family histories together. Greg Berhalter, I don't want to say accused of domestic violence, but pretty credibly reported that he did have an incident with his wife back in college as they were dating. That was brought up by Reina's mom. And then and all of this basically comes out, and US Soccer says we're not re-signing Greg Berhalter to a new contract, which means we started this very important World Cup cycle with an interim coach. It lasted for 9 months because Greg didn't come on, and spoiler alert, Greg gets rehired. But the new coach, the new full-time coach, didn't even start coaching until the September friendlies. We started with Anthony Hudson. He left at the end of May to take over, I think, Qatar it was. Then BJ Callahan took over. We won the Nations League. That was great. Beat Mexico 3-0 in a semifinal. That was fantastic. But then followed it up with a semifinal exit of a Gold Cup, which is a failure. During this time, Ernie Stewart also stepped down as U.S. Soccer sporting director. Matt Crocker takes over. We go through this whole big thing. And finally, Greg Berhalter is rehired as head coach of the U.S. men's national team in June of 2026 or 2023. And again, doesn't start coaching until later that year. As I said, think this was the biggest problem. The interim period to start the 2026 cycle is the biggest reason why this team did not progress as much as it should have during the cycle, and therefore did not have as good of a World Cup this summer. I really think that it affected player identification, development, and just general planning for the cycle. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it's disjointed. I mean, for sure. I mean, the players, I don't know what the players knew when they knew it in terms of the Berhalter situation. Obviously, things got leaked around Nations League and that he was coming back. But him not coaching that Gold Cup, too, to me was very weird, very odd, like in terms of the potential opportunity that was missed by him not coaching it. And so there was just some odd movements, as it resulted in that. And we've discussed this in the past. And I think U.S. Soccer was going to bring him back anyway. I think
he was.
Yeah. And so I think all of it was more of a show of anything. I mean, they reviewed all these things, and wow, the guy that we got rid of, the guy's contract ended and we didn't bring back because of the situation. Hey, it's the guy we're choosing. Like
the man who best fit our metrics that we created based off of his metrics was the guy who best fit our metrics.
Yeah.
Weird how
I
that
mean,
works.
yeah, and that the whole Berhalter situation from that to the cycle before with his hiring and stuff, to me, they're trying to pre-plan all this stuff and they forced it. And I think with the piece that they missed at the end, and I'm hoping we don't see any sort of I want to see a cycle with a manager from start to finish. And the last one we've had was 2010 with Bob Bradley.
Yeah.
Right. That's the last cycle that we've had a manager from start to finish. And I think, and
wait,
again,
we didn't have a manager from start to finish from 2018 cycle or for the 2022 cycle either.
No.
Wait, why was that?
Because you waited a year. Like, I mean, and those are the things too. Like, I don't
to hire who?
To hire Greg Berhalter, right? So, which they knew, and everyone, it was a secret that everyone knew about, right? That was the thing. Like, and I'm sitting there probably naively thinking, it's crazy, it's crazy, it's crazy, and then it happens. Like, I guess it's not crazy. Like, to know all these different things, and I and I don't think it's giving a fair shake to the manager either, right? Or the players to have this sort of dysfunction. And obviously, the 22 cycle with COVID was a whole other animal, and a challenge that the national team had to go through, and and hopefully we can get through a full cycle and see what that is, because debatably the 2010 team might have been one of the best teams, even though they didn't go deep into the World Cup, that the U.S. has ever really fielded. And I think we have some of those players here, hopefully blended in with some of the youth players that we've talked about past cycle, and that will hopefully get a look and hopefully find some time this cycle and maybe in these larger potential tournaments that we could see in the middle of the cycle.
I think your point about coaching is a big problem, because I think if Greg starts the cycle, we don't know if the 2024 Copa America, which we'll get into, like, we don't know if that happens if Greg starts the cycle or not. But I do think that we would have been farther down the line of getting new players into the fold. And I think if he is coaching, it just took too damn long to rehire him. Like that, it just took too damn long to rehire him. Why did we wait 6 months? We had to hire some sporting director. Who's now no longer in that job, by the way, and we didn't replace him. So tell me what that accomplished. But I do think if he is in that position, we are seeing a little bit more of okay, we got new players. They're bought into the plan. They know the plan. We're just half a step ahead. But look, BJ Callahan had a really cool, Nations League run. He beats Mexico in the semifinal, beats Canada in the final. Like, we love seeing that. It did show what this team was capable of. And I think it's a problem that if you were to run those back again today, I can't tell you that we're beating Mexico 3-0 or Canada 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch those matches, it's a very different type of soccer that group played under BJ Callahan than they did under Greg Berhalter. And and you could say whatever you want about why that was, but it definitely was. It didn't obviously translate to the Gold Cup as much. Obviously, different roster. Losing in PKs to Panama in the semifinal wasn't ideal, but those are the breaks on that. But I think that, I mean, everyone kind of always talks about BJ Callahan as one of the next options when you look at another American coach. And I don't know, there's a little bit of a flash in the pan too for what he did. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, I think part of having a full cycle is being able to fully evaluate in this, right? And so we didn't have, and also too about last cycle, we didn't have a full cycle either last one, because 2022 ended in December. So
correct.
There were matches that we didn't have in the fall that we would normally have had into leading into the cycle. So even on
that's an interesting point, because what if the 2022 World Cup ends at a normal time? Assuming the Reina Berhalter stuff happens, because clearly that was a problem because of Gio not being fit or whatever, and it would have happened because Gio's never fit. So there's that. If it takes 6 months to rehire Greg Berhalter, right, and we just finish out the year with an interim, I don't think that's as damaging, right? Because you start 23 with the new coach. It's fine, I think.
Correct, right? Because you go right into the 26 cycle with, obviously you believe it or not, they actually had a January camp in 26, which is surprising, but they did. And then they go right into the group stage of the Nations League, and then the final goes into the June, right? So you're right in it very quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have the 3 months, the 3 windows, after the World Cup, like we're going to have here, or the 6 matches, then it's a little bit different, right? It's like, okay, yeah, there's less urgency. We can try to figure this out. Even if you go through the German camp, then we have it for March, right? And then you can prep and be ready and head into the summer tournament for the Gold Cup. And I think that's, I think that timing is a little different because they only played 59 matches last cycle, right? Which is lower. They've averaged about 66, 67 matches since the 1998 cycle, which is fine. And I do want to bring a couple of interesting statistics while we're talking about that. So the U.S. did accomplish their 7th straight cycle with 30 or more wins. So mind you, they played 6 fewer matches on average. 6 or 7 fewer matches on average since the 1998 cycle, and they still were able to get to the 30 win mark. Within that period of time. So, and obviously in 98, they did not meet that mark. They had 27. And this is an interesting one here. So this was also the 6th straight cycle where they had 100 or more goals scored. In 2002, they missed it by 1 goal. They had 99. And goals per game average, this is the highest playing 40 or more matches that the U.S. has ever had. They averaged 1.966 goals per match in this cycle, which again is the highest that they've had in playing at least 40 matches within a cycle. So there's definitely some things that they continue to be consistent on, some things to kind of hang your hat on, which I thought was kind of interesting. Not overly impactful. Of course, the other one that's not as positive is the goals conceded, which is the highest they've had. Is the highest they've had since what to say? This is the 2010 cycle.
Yeah.
At 1.22 goals conceded per match, which is not surprising considering how few shutouts we had, in the Pochettino era. So.
Yeah. Well, and even under the Greg 2.0 era, which, if you were to categorize or kind of sum up the Greg 1.0 era, it would be that we were a pretty defensively solid team that needed to rely on moments of magic as a team for us to score. That did not happen. He took over again for those fall friendlies in 2023. Looked okay. CONCACAF Nations League, fine. Wins the Nations League finals in 2023. Great, cool, fantastic. Entered Copa America as the host with a huge opportunity for like a number of reasons, right? Chance to really show out 2 years before a home World Cup, say, look, we are here. We can be serious contenders at home. Both internally and externally really build momentum. We squandered it, to say the least. We looked underwhelming in the first match against Bolivia, but still a pretty controlled win. Then we lose to Panama because of a silly red card. And that put us at a very big problem, needing a win against Uruguay in the final match day, which we did not get. Losing a must-win match at home to get grouped in a major international tournament sucks. And Greg Berhalter was summarily fired. So the 2.0 era didn't even last, a full year, really, if you count when he actually started the job. So Copa sucked. Like, I think that's just fair to say. The Copa America tournament for the U.S. sucked. It was a massive missed opportunity. It was a failure. But the question does have to be asked, was it just because of Greg, or was it also on the players?
I mean, I think it was on the players and Greg too, because I think what happened was you could see in that time, which I don't know where the urgency lacked with this, at the time, mind you. Obviously,
Sure.
now I kind of see it as just who this group is.
Yep.
The urgency and of, hey, we're playing this. This is kind of a let's just see how deep we can run into the tournament. They didn't have the fire, right? And then come the next summer when Pochettino's trying to build the Gold Cup roster, there are players saying they don't want to be involved in that. Again, I have to wonder if there were already deals made under Greg Berhalter about, hey, if you play in the Copa America, you're not going to play in Gold Cup, whatever. There just to me seemed there was something there a little bit with some of that entitlement. Granted, players need rest, whatever it is, but to me it impacted obviously Musa from being called in ever again under Pochettino, and who knows if he gets a second chance, right? Because to me, I think he's too good of a player to not look at him in this cycle. But I just think there was a different
I feel like
motivation.
you could have used him this summer. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And I think to me, we can't lose these opportunities of not having coaches in there, right? To not have him there, wasn't good. But then to bring him back and then to fall in your face, right? He only coached what, like 14 matches in his return. And again, that articulates to me a number of things why bringing a manager back for a second cycle is not something I particularly would like. Because he didn't have a full cycle, but it was damn close, right? Like he didn't miss out on any really significant matches. I think every match was a friendly that he probably missed out on when Dave Sarakin was coaching his 12 matches in there. I think there was probably a couple quality games, and then they played Brazil and England and Italy and sometime at the end of 2018 in those windows there. I think there were some good friendlies that they had after the World Cup, but other than that, he didn't miss any competitive matches, I don't believe. So in all intents and purposes, he had a full cycle, in terms of that. But I just think the motivation wasn't there. They think this group thought they could turn it on and off whenever they could, and they can't. They just can't do that. The women have realized they can't do that anymore either, right? And so hey, we may be great, we may be top in the world, but you have to have the mentality throughout. It's not like, oh, I'll get to the group stage and then we'll turn it on. No. It's full force. Like you have to be out there to do that. And this group has never really figured that out. I mean, we started in this World Cup, but those are matches you should win. They are. Even the Turkey match, it's one you should win. So I think the onus does go on the players and the coach a little bit in general. They definitely got a little too loose, I think, in terms of that mentality. I kind of lost, we all lost respect for them at that point. It was a low point for the national team in a cycle you don't have to qualify in, so it makes it a little bit harder too to kind of get up for the matches. And Pochettino being hired obviously was, kind of the excitement that fans kind of needed to lean on.
There were some warning signs that I think we blamed Greg for, that, as you said, seemed to be more characteristics of this core group as a whole. But I do think that we can kind of, I don't know how much blame, but there is some blame on him for the lack of urgency, the sense of complacency, the sense of, oh, good, I'm a starter, who cares? It's not Greg's fault. No one emerged as a left winger to push Christian Pulisic, right? It's also a little bit Greg's fault that he didn't really try to push that against Christian or try to somehow leverage some urgency and competition within camp, right? Which I think is something that Pochettino did. But like, Greg deservedly took the fall. We had some problems before this. I mean, obviously we had that one game where we lost 5-1 to Colombia. That didn't look great. It just felt like we were just going through the motions is the best I can describe it. And there's no like statistical analysis to prove that. It's just, you had to be watching the team at that point in time.
Yeah. It's hard. And this is the thing, there are a lot of players we throw out their names along the way throughout the cycle, who we want to see on the roster, who's playing well at, younger players that just that doesn't happen for them. Right. Kevin Paredes is one of them, right? We see him. He was a player that we talk about, right? And it didn't line up. He got injured, right? And so I think it's like, it just shows the lack of quality depth that we still have within our pool, because we have to rely on all these players to do all these things consistently all the time. And it's like, holy crap, when someone gets injured, right? Pulisic gets injured, who's going to fill in, right? It's less of a thing, but it is still a thing, right? I mean,
yeah.
And obviously when he came back in this World Cup, he wasn't fit. And again, I'm going to call it US Soccer on this, because wasn't Greg Berhalter supposed to be evaluating the things he did well and things he needed to be improving on while the Gold Cup was going on that year he was hired?
That was the whole thing, right? Yeah,
right. Because he didn't change a damn thing, right? He didn't change a damn thing in terms of how he did that, right? And so that's just lip service, because to me,
we didn't even really see a great progression in our style of play.
Yeah, it just stopped. Like it stopped, and it's everyone figured it out. And that's the thing. Great coaches have to realize, hey, I've got to change it up against better teams. And that's what Pochettino wasn't able to do against Belgium. And he's got to figure that out this cycle as well, because we're good enough to play in every final of every Confederation tournament. We should be good enough to get out of the group if we are invited to Copa America, which I really hope we are, because I think that's still another tournament that we need this group to
I hope we
play
get
in.
invited to the tournament that we're reportedly hosting. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't care if they're hosting. I don't. That to me, that's
no. I agree. I think it would be silly for CONMEBOL to not invite USA and Mexico into the tournament for like multiple reasons, but competition being one.
Well, I mean, Mexico is going to become part of CONMEBOL, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So they're in there by default now, right?
Good Lord.
but yeah, I just think that there's just a lot of missteps along the way, and he just didn't execute and didn't change anything, and they just thought they could roll it out again and do this. And US Soccer is so hell bent on having an American manager host, on American soil, and they paid for it because the heat came in hard and they had to do something at that point. They were desperate to do that, and I will say US Soccer was not ready for it, right? They typically have their backup plans ready, right? Bob Bradley was ready. It was going to be fired before he was. Klinsmann had been talked to 6 months before it happened. He was ready to go. Same with, Bruce Arena. He was ready to come if Klinsmann failed, which he did, and they were ready to bring him in. They didn't have an answer for Berhalter on any of the occasions in general, right? The answer for Berhalter was Berhalter, right? And then
it was especially sad that they didn't have an answer for Berhalter. And by the way, I did not want him, and I still didn't. But like, you had a Jesse Marsch there the first time, and again, I don't know if he makes a better team or whatnot, but it's like, I'm with you. Why was what are we going to do? We don't have Greg Berhalter,
right, and they're going up,
and they didn't have an answer the second time, so they fire him, and we hear pretty early on after that rumors of big names that US Soccer has reached out to this person, that person. I didn't really believe them because I was just like, y'all, we don't have the money, right? It must be said the previous year US Soccer went out and got Emma Hayes, and was paying her a lot of money for a women's national team head coach, but she was making like 1.5 million a year, which is not the salary of Jurgen Klopp or even Mauricio Pochettino when he was at Chelsea. And so we hear these kind of big names. We hear some of the small potatoes names. Eventually, thanks to the help of a lot of guys who are hedge fund managers, we get Mauricio Pochettino. And in a way, I'm kind of glad we didn't have like a exact answer, but the fact that we landed up with Mauricio Pochettino is pretty awesome. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, that's a big get for U.S. soccer. And I think at that point, it was one of two things. One, it was the recognition that we've got to get a coach who isn't afraid to shake things up in the locker room. But also, we got to get a coach that people can get excited about. I do think that was a big factor in getting Mauricio Pochettino, because you can't have, no offense to him, Wilfred Nancy coaching your national team at the World Cup that you're hosting, you know?
Well, it's the college basketball,
Yeah.
right mindset, right? Coach is the face of the organization, not the players, because the players come and go very quickly, especially in college sports and definitely college basketball. So your face of it is the coach, right? And so that's that. We talked about that well before Pochettino was hired, in terms of, hey, U.S. Soccer, you can do this and bring in a big name coach and pay him not what he was making, but pay them $5, $6, $7 million annually, and have a similar formula to how college basketball is run in that manner. And that's what they did, and that's what they needed. And he did shake it up, and he did ruffle things, and he did do that. And I think he needs, honestly, now I want him to do it even more.
Yeah.
Right. Like, now I want to do it anymore. Like, I kind of didn't want him to do as much as he did, because I'm like, look, we kind of have what we have here. Like, let's be somewhat careful.
Yeah. The reality is the players are the players. We can't go buy.
Right.
We can't go buy Virgil van Dijk and be like, well, we got better defenders now.
Right. We have 20 months. Like, you don't have a lot of runway to be able to start playing things and bringing players back in, or whatever it is. Right. And so now he's got that runway. Go ahead and do it. Hey, Pulisic, sorry, man. Like, you need a break. You're not coming in this window, which I don't think you will, for a number of reasons.
I mean, don't call it a break. Say, hey, we just didn't want to. We didn't feel like he deserved to call it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't. I think you have to try to, do it in a little bit more diplomatic way with the players, and not throw them under the bus. Kind of like that was done a little bit with Pulisic, and Musa.
Yeah, and Musa.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, like, let's, kind of keep some of the stuff behind the scenes a little bit.
Sure.
Be ready to handle the tough questions and have the excuses ready, and let the fans complain how they're going to complain about. But yeah, you've got to be able to do that. Berhalter didn't do that in his last stint, by any means, and I think you have to. That's what you've got to keep these players on their toes. You've got to have they've got to want to play for the national team, and they've got to understand, hey, this isn't guaranteed for you, and you have a full cycle to kind of make it work or not.
Well, I think it's fair to say that he did not have like a glowing success in his first really 9 months in charge. He starts the October 2024 window with the win against Panama, which at that point was like, oh my God, we beat Panama. Thank God. But loses to Mexico down in Mexico. We do get a road win in the Nations League, which was pretty cool to see. We beat Jamaica on the road. That was nice. Advance to the finals. Look, January camp is January camp. He does start bringing in some young talent. A couple of those guys do become key fixtures for him throughout the cycle. But then we get to March 2025 and the Nations League finals. And I mean, we bombed completely. I mean, this was a complete and total crash out. We lose both the semifinal and the final, looking very bad. And at that point, you can't go hire a new coach. I don't think, I mean, again, if we didn't have an answer after Berhalter left, we weren't going to have an answer to, okay, well, Pochettino's not coaching anymore. What do we do? But I think it's fair to say that we were concerned, but Pochettino felt similarly concerned, especially knowing how he approached the Gold Cup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and again, it's a hard time to come into a cycle, right? Like, you're coming in, you're trying to learn the players, you're trying to, there's a lot on you. and there's not really any grace period that exists a little bit, right? If you had a 4 window grace period, I mean, which you kind of did, but with the pressure of the World Cup on top of you, right? Like that's the problem. Like you're coming into it, and we saw that at the Gold Cup. We saw how Pochettino started to buy in to U.S. soccer, buy into the players. He broke down when they lost in the final. Like he and to me that speaks a lot about him buying into the program, right? Whether you believed what he was doing or not, you believed he wasn't just here, you know, he had a bigger goal in mind, and he didn't achieve that, right? And so hopefully again, he hasn't, we criticized Greg Berhalter a lot for not winning trophies, right? Pochettino
He hasn't
needs
won a
to
trophy.
win. He's got to win some trophies. I mean, he's had 2 chances and he hasn't won one. So he's got to win some this cycle. I mean, the first year he's going to have a chance to win one, to win 2. So, and I think he's going to want to do that. I think he has to find that I mean, look, I don't really care if they win the trophies, honestly. I think I want to see them play good soccer. I want to see them in the final of these tournaments. But I also want to see certain players integrated into the system and working them in general. And you've got to find that balance of that, right? And I think that's the challenge of a national team coach. You don't have these players for the periods of times you'd want. And how do you integrate these certain things? And maybe he's figured out a formula to that. I don't know yet. We haven't really seen that. The urgency of the World Cup in front of you had a very different motivation. And I think that's where that has to shift for him.
He did make a lot of changes. Look, I think it's fair to say that there was still a lot of concern even after that, because you lost the 2 friendlies before the Gold Cup. Turkey A match wasn't terrible, but like the Switzerland match was bad. You looked okay during the Gold Cup. You still ended up losing Mexico in the final, which, we didn't bring our strongest squad, whatever you want to say, but still not great. And then we lost to Korea 2-0 to start kind of the real run up to the World Cup. And I think at that point, it was fair to say that, and I'll count myself in this, I was going, oh boy, this might not work out.
Yeah, I mean, the team made a shift in the next match against Japan. And things started to kind of move a little bit. And I think at that point they started looking to play the 3-back formation, which we saw that had some success. And from there it started to build, right? They started to play a little bit better against better opponents. And again, at that point, they're on a run of playing teams that all qualify for the World Cup until they got there, right? And I think that that was that build. Okay, we're seeing the improvement. We're seeing the certain things, right? We're seeing these things that we haven't seen in quite a while, and we're feeling good about how the team looks, how the team's playing. And understand we're not playing, they're friendlies. The intensity isn't there like we would see in a World Cup, but you've got to take what you have and play who you're playing. And then we went on a nice 5 matches.
Yeah, we ended the World Cup. We ended the year 5 matches unbeaten, 4-0-1. So that's my point. It's like something clicked. I don't know what. I don't know what he said to him.
Yeah, I mean, and that was key, right? Obviously, they finish off beating Uruguay in that November window. Everyone's feeling great. Okay, everyone's like, "This is great. We're on a roll." Right? We beat a top 15 team. I'm not sure I consider that a signature win or not, but some people did. And then you say,
at that point in time, I think it was fair to call that a big win. Maybe not.
It was a big win for sure.
It was a big win.
Yeah, for sure. And then you go into the March window saying, okay, wow, we're on a roll. We're playing now the next level of tier of team. We're playing teams in the top 10. How can we compete against them? And, what is it going to look like, right? And obviously we don't have our full roster going into those games, but I think fans were optimistic, right? Hey, we're optimistic. Totally. We don't have to win the games, but we have to kind of feel good about them when we come out of them, right?
Right. And we didn't. I didn't feel great after those 2 games, but my thought process now is, oh, that's just who we are against top teams.
Right, and I think that's the key to all this, right? When we talk about that signature win, it's against a top tier team in the top 10, right? In a meaningful match. And I don't know if you consider those March matches that or not, but we still
I mean,
hadn't.
had we beat either Portugal or Belgium, that would in those friendlies, that would have
Oh
been
yeah,
a pretty top. Like that would have been a signature win, I think.
yeah, and so that's what we've lacked for some time with this
Yeah.
group of players. They have not yet to really have that. Holy crap, they're doing it and then do it again, right? Like,
Yeah.
because it's not a one off. It's got to be 95 Copa America, right? They go ahead and they make it to the semifinal. They beat Argentina, right? And who else did they beat? Another team in that was a pretty big one too. But whatever it is, but like you have to, you need to stack it again, right? You've got to have that. It's the win and then the follow through on the next one.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to that momentum, to that growth that we just still couldn't have in this cycle, right? Like we played the matches, like we go out and beat Senegal, right? Great. You felt good about that, right? The good Senegal team, you beat them.
Felt good.
And you go play Germany and you lose 2-1, but it wasn't really, that wasn't, again, it's the one before. You kind of take it easy. It's those sorts of things that you kind of feel
Right.
certain things and you're not totally measuring against it. So it's it's just one of those things where you kind of want to have more of that momentum, more of that, when you see it type of thing. And I don't think we saw it enough to really feel, hey, this is all coming together, right? This is all coming together. I mean, we felt good because of the group we had.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking back on it, I'm not thinking we beat Belgium in the round of 16.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that maybe we get lucky and things go away. But if you watch the first 3 minutes of it, you're like, nope, not happening. It's not going to happen, right? And I think again for this team that needs to find that next gear. We all need to see that. We all want to see that.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like this was Pochettino's team before the World Cup?
I think I did. I mean, there was definitely players, and I think this is a coaching thing in general. I think players want to hang their hat. I mean, coaches want to hang their hat on, say, hey, that's my guy. Aguimong was that player, right? Gets injured. He would have been on that World Cup. I think he's on that World Cup if he's not injured, right?
Yeah.
I think those are the players he looks at. I think Berhalter might even be one of those players for him. They say, hey, this is my guy. Like I found him, or whatever it is, right? And I think those are the things that coaches want to hang their hats on when they're looking at a roster. There's no, I mean, like, as much as we talk about snubs and all that stuff, it's not a huge amount of like holy craps on this roster. I don't think the roster's all that much different, no matter who's coaching the team. But
right.
I mean, he started Matt Freeze, like that. He took that stance on that. Alex Freeman is another player that's his. So I think he took some of those players, and I don't think he was wrong necessarily with some of those moves. But
I think Freeman is absolutely like
I mean, I think that's a signature.
Like if he wants to hang his hat on a dude, that's I found him.
For sure. Because to me, and I don't want to compare him to Ream in 02. I mean 22, but a similar type of player that stepped up, had his moments, obviously got exposed in the bigger ones, but definitely, hey, a young player that he's going to be here for cycles to come, right? And the goalie, I think you go with who you're comfortable with, and that's the what he went with, and we'll agree to disagree on that. Sorry, but I don't think it matters either way. But he's got to figure.
I don't think Matt Turner is necessarily helping us win.
No, I don't think he does either. But I still think it's probably 2-1. They ends 2-1 if Matt Turner's in there, and they lose, but they have a chance. But that's the thing he's got to deal with this cycle. How is he going to deal with the goalie thing this cycle? Because to me, it's a shit show. There's no one that gives me any warm and fuzzies. Anyone on this, right?
Yeah.
Right, because and I don't think they have to play in Europe necessarily, but we don't have anything. Like who's there? And I think that's going to be a big piece for him,
Yeah.
because as much as I didn't like it, he kind of stuck with Freeze along the way. I wish you would have stuck with him all the way. If he's your guy,
Yeah, it felt.
if he's
Yeah.
your guy, then you run the table with him, and he plays in every single match that you have, and no excuses. He plays in the Turkey match.
Yeah.
He plays in the 2 friendlies, both matches all the way through. There's nothing there, and to me, that's a little bit of a misstep on his part, because there's no value in playing Turner in half the match. What the hell? I mean, unless you really think Turner is in a fight, which I didn't think he was.
Yeah.
Is it a motivation for Freeze? I don't know. Like, yeah, to me that was a miss on that part, because you've got to give him every single, because he clearly was out of his depth when it came to the bigger stage. He definitely had literal missteps while playing on that, and the pressure got to him at moments. And that's because you don't play in World Cup qualifiers, and you don't play in high intensity matches and at the highest level. And that is what it is.
I mean, that's the defining theme of this cycle. We did not play any World Cup qualifiers, so there was always this level of uneasiness because nothing mattered, but it did matter. And we spent 3 years wondering what this team could be. And finally, the World Cup comes. It's our home World Cup, for all intents and purposes. It was the final exam for this team for this cycle. They got 3 wins, 2 losses, but we're bounced into the round of 16. So I don't know. Did they even meet expectations for you, Thomas?
I mean, yeah, I think they met expectations. I mean, they had to get to 16. They won it. I mean, obviously expanded, but they won the round of 32. Because if they don't win the round of 32, I mean, like, you have to make it to 16. You have to. That's what this group's ceiling has been for a very long time. And so you have to make it there. I mean, winning a match in a knockout stage was pretty sweet. It's been a while. I understand it's round of 32, but it's still winning it, right? I don't care. It's still winning it. It's part of the tournament. It is what it is going forward. That's what it's going to be.
You won your group that got you an easy matchup in the first round. And I will say, and I've wanted to say this, and I will stand by it. I think we would have won a round of 16 match in a normal World Cup. And I say that because we would have won our group and played a second place team. And I think we could have won that.
Yeah, I think that's valid.
We just happened to play a first place team in a round of 16 match, which would have never happened in a previous World Cup.
I think that's I hadn't even really considered that, but that's a great point. I mean, and you're right, we do win that, because I think we're better than a lot of the second place teams in all of this tournament. I'm not sure. I mean, I have to go down and look on it, but I think
Senegal was a second place team. We beat them.
And I think you beat them again if you played them.
So,
in the knockout round over Belgium for sure. But
I think they met my lowest expectations, right? I think our expectation was, okay, round of 16, as we always do. I really wanted this team to make a quarterfinal. I think they could have, maybe with a better draw. We just unfortunately got one of the good teams that actually won their group, and some of the other teams that won their group weren't great. We got one that was played really well when it came time for it, right? Found a way to beat Senegal, come back, came out against us with some fire, and it happened. I think it's frustrating we didn't do more. And for me, where this team is going to fall short, I think what my kind of thesis on this entire cycle is that it was good enough, but it wasn't better. And I really needed it to be overall better. We met the things we were supposed to do, but at no point did we actually do anything above. We didn't do anything more than we have before. We may have scored some more goals in the World Cup. We won 3 games. That's great. But at the end of the day, we didn't really do more than we had before. And I think that's what's frustrating about the cycle.
Yeah, and I think I've said it for a long time, because we don't have world-class talent. We've never really had that.
Say that again.
We do not have world-class talent. We have moments. We have maybe a season or two, but world-class talent is consistent year after year, and the U.S. can't do that. That's my one issue that I've had for a very long time, is the consistency of players year after year after year. Give me a decade of top quality soccer from players. I don't care what league you're playing in. right? Because I don't. If you can do year after year after year, I don't care what league you're playing in. But we don't see that, right? Diego Luna, he has flashes, right? We can't expect to have a player on a flash moment and do this. This team has to have the talent that's performing and playing decades of quality soccer so that when we have World Cups, they're ready to go. Because I think they can compete and take it up a notch. I mean, Donovan did it, and he was playing the MLS. So you can't say that it's a league based, right? When it comes to that. And for me, it's
Josie's best years were in the Eredivisie.
Right. And I mean, and that's part of its confidence. Part of it's all these different things. I mean, look, if we get to your point, if we get a better draw in the knockout stage, look at one side of the bracket was a joke. I mean, Argentina had a friggin', I mean, they're a good team, don't get me wrong, but
what if we happen to have drawn Argentina?
Right.
That Argentina team. I'm just saying. Maybe it's possible.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but even that, I mean,
Egypt, I think we could have beat a lot of those teams.
I mean, it's an easy side of the bracket, right? It just is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The U.S. would need to find that pocket of bracket to make that run, and that truly deep run to a semifinal. England did it
because even if we beat Belgium,
right,
we're not beating Spain.
Well, right, exactly. I mean, you look again. I think I took it down, but the bracket, I talked to my daughter. I'm like, she's like, it's stacked on one. I'm like, yeah, it's stacked. Like, it's crazy. Like, there's Argentina's got a pretty easy, path to the final. And again, that is what it is. And maybe FIFA changes it, if they go to 64 teams and make it a little bit, they re-bracket or they find a way to balance the bracket out more. I don't know. But yeah, I just think we need more consistency across the board from our players, from our player pool. Because I think if you had that, think about that. If you have, again, health you can't control, but imagine if you had, Agumon, DK, all your strikers, right? And you have 6 strikers that you could really pull in at any time and say, yeah, right. Yeah. I'm not saying they're all, Mulligan quality, but geez, you know what? Against certain levels.
If we had a backup left winger so that our switch in a must-win World Cup match when Christian Pulisic pulls his, hurts himself, gets a little boo-boo, it's not put on Sebastian Berhalter. No, if we would have had an actually good left winger or another attacking player we could have put on, because we needed goals. No offense to Sebastian Berhalter, we needed goals.
Well, and that's the problem, and that kind of reminded me a little bit of the Klinsmann era, right, where he's playing players out of position, way out of position. Pochettino started doing that a little bit too. He's like, well, you're good enough. Look, I'm fine for playing left to right or whatever it is in some spots. Of course, way on the left was an epic fail, but
it's not working,
but you need to know your players.
But shifting Tillman out to a position where it was like he was cooking in the midfield, putting him out on the wing, just it took away what he was doing.
And he was,
so well,
but he put, see, that's the thing though. Tillman worked where he had them, and I was shocked at as well as it worked, right?
Yeah.
He proved me.
But even still, it took away what was going well. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm with you. The talent as a whole is just not there, top to bottom. And our top talent still is not at the top level it needs to be. So that kind of brings me to my final talking points of this cycle is this generation good? The golden generation guy,
No, I do.
The Pulisic.
I think we have one more cycle to find out. Really, I mean, these guys are all be in their prime still. They're healthy. Most of them should be there, because to me, there's not enough. I have to laugh because I could never do it, because I think it's extremely hard to do, to project a World Cup roster 4 years in advance, and the number of young players people have starting on this, and they may be right, but I don't want to try to guess that, because that, to me, it's
they have to prove it.
Well, right, that's the thing. It's easy to throw Gojo out there and all these other players and Hall and whoever else, right? But you have to be realistic about their progression too. They're teenagers. Yeah. If you get 2 of those teenagers to play and be a contributor, I think it's a win.
Yeah. If you could change one decision that U.S. soccer made during this cycle, what would it be?
I think bringing Berhalter back. I mean, I know that's probably the easy answer. I mean, I just would have moved on. That being said, I think Jesse Marsh would be your coach, right?
I mean,
If
here's the thing: does Jesse make it out of Copa America? I don't know. I don't know.
I honestly think the results aren't different. I don't think there's a manager you bring in that provides a different result. I just don't. I don't think there's a good enough manager to get that what we need out of this group. That just that hunger, that whatever it was, because there was a completely different team against Belgium that we'd seen all tournament. To me, there's reasons behind it.
I mean, I don't think I think if Marsh is hired, maybe we do okay at Copa America.
Oh,
and I think
think
that's
so.
what's scary.
Yeah.
Right. Is that we do okay enough to keep him around.
Well, right. I think he would have gone the distance.
If Tim Weah doesn't get a red card, which again is like, that's a lot of people are blaming Greg Berhalter for that, which whatever. You can't blame Greg Berhalter for Tim Weah deciding to punch a guy in the back of the head. I'm sorry, you just can't.
That's the immaturity of the players that we've seen through this, cycle. The last cycle, pulled another crap like that, right? And in a match that we needed. So, I mean, I think that's part of it. I don't. Honestly, Berhalter stays. I don't think the result. I think everything remains the same. I don't think there's any real.
Yeah, we make it out of the group. We maybe have to actually beat Turkey or like get a result against.
And I still think you make it to the round of 16. I still think that.
We may not have. I mean, I'll say this: the Pochettino hire and the games in the group stage, specifically the Paraguay and the Australia matches, were galvanizing for this fan base because they were the first time in a very long time we saw this team play good soccer. Now, granted, is Paraguay that good? Yeah, they're okay. They made a round of 16 as well, but like those two matches are signature matches for Pochettino. And I think that's why he's coming back, because you could see what this team could be with him.
Right. And I expect to see that sort of play this cycle as well, right? And the key is going to be
they looked American.
Right. They did. They actually started to create and have some sort of semblance of what we've talked about for, I don't know, a long time, probably since, as far back as Klinsmann or Bradley, that sort of identity, right? And I think that's part of the reason they're bringing him back. And can he continue rolling it? Can he because that's going to be the key, right? Because you can't flame out at this next World Cup either, right? You can't.
No.
You can't flame out at it. You've got to try to take it to that next level and figure it out. If Pochettino has to try to figure out what he can get out of this group and who else he can recruit or scout or whatever term you want to use with whatever player pool we have to find those combinations and make it work and find that depth, man. Find it, because it's something that we desperately need.
Well, we will talk about the next cycle and all that in our next episode. But this, Thomas, thank you for looking back at the 2026 cycle and critiquing it, I think, fairly, not trying to be too harsh, but at the end of the day, I personally it was a cycle that we took a couple steps. I don't know, not even a couple steps. We took a little bit of progress forward. I just don't think it was a whole lot. If you could rank the progress, final question before we get out of here, rank the progress 1 to 10. How much progress did we make?
I gave it a 3 out of 10. I thought they should have done more. And that means the whole cycle. I thought they should have done more in the Confederation tournaments we played. They should have done better in Copa America. As much as I was okay with the result of the World Cup, I still think quarterfinal is where you need to be, in that tournament. I mean, considering how high things were at the end of 2022, right? You go and beat Iran. You know what I mean? You feel good. As much as the loss to the Netherlands sucked, I felt really good coming out of that World Cup.
Yeah.
Right. I did. I'm like, okay, like we've got a young group of players. Sky's the limit, right? Like with this group, there's a lot of good to take out of it. I think we have a lot of question marks. I think we have a lot of holes that we had going into the World Cup that now we have to fill next cycle. I don't think they made huge progress. We actually did worse, right? Like we started losing the Nations League. We didn't win the Gold Cup, right? Like, I mean, we didn't win a Gold Cup that cycle. It's been a while, right? So and again, that, we have to be dominant in our confederation. I mean, because right now that's the majority of the matches we're playing. We have to have that level of dominance, and these tournaments have to matter. We can't just be sending like the last Gold Cup. There was a weird blend of player, which I'm fine with, because you had, in all intents and purposes, some A players, some B and some C level players, right, on that roster. They all had chances.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that blend of mix of player, but I don't want to see a full C squad out there. I just don't. I don't want to see that anymore. We have to take these tournaments seriously, and utilize them, and have it a goal and objective going into them.
I agree. I would give it a 4, because I think at the end we saw, we can actually do something with this. But I'm with you. Not winning Gold Cups is a problem. Not winning the most recent Nations League. I mean, you went through 2 sporting directors and you don't have one anymore. So I think maybe you didn't really learn a whole lot.
Right. I mean, we didn't even talk about that, right? Like what did Crocker do other than, I mean, he hired Pochettino, he hired Emma Hayes.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, I'm sure he did things too. But but there's a lot of unknowns based on his absence, and and the timing of it it's obviously weird on that. So, like to me, I think there's just a higher expectation that's needed. I mean, it's if you look at the result percentage for this cycle, it's probably one of the worst. Let's see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the worst since, I have to go back to the 98 cycle, which was a shitty cycle for sure. Right. When you talk about,
Yeah, because I mean, a part of this I will say is, again, we didn't have qualifiers, so there were a lot of potential wins from qualification, but it just wasn't the step forward that I think we needed it to be, given that we had a home World Cup. And that's what's frustrating about this 2026 cycle. So no, to answer the question we started off with, no, it wasn't good enough. And we'll see. But look, next episode, we'll talk about looking forward to the next cycle and things that maybe we hopefully will see improved upon, and who knows, maybe it'll happen. What do you have working over at chasingacup.com?
I think I mentioned during the pod, I'm working on a piece, kind of looking at, the next generation of players that we talked about, maybe some dual national, maybe some young goalkeepers in general that are kind of there on the cusp a little bit, that aren't really teenagers anymore, but kind of in their, they're out kind of, they're going to age out of the Olympics, and maybe those players, either they've only got a cap or 2, or none at all under the U.S. Maybe they get a look, and then obviously looking at the teenagers and seeing what they have and what the steps they're going to take between now and the Olympics, right? Hopefully we can see these players come through together and play in a home Olympics and get a medal, because that would be, I mean, I don't know. I think that would be good. It would definitely invigorate some of the fans to do that at that level, even though I'm not sure it translates necessarily, but I just think it's the type of attention we need.
Yeah. Hopefully. Well, you can follow him on Twitter at USKeeper, where work like that will be published, as well as chasingacup.com. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Soccer4UsPod. Thanks, Thomas, for talking with me. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Bart. I'm out.